last Tuesday. I got to tell you, I really think that those of you who chose the presentation, you have made a good choice. And I know this, that you made a good choice if you're me, but you're not. But I think that maybe some of you have realized that, hey, if I choose the exit presentation, and I have complete control of what I say and how this progresses, how I go through my presentation. The reason we're here today is because, man, you are, how about this? I run half marathons. And some of my people advise know that I've oftentimes said that school is kind of like running a half marathon. And the first mile, it's kind of fun, man. When you're with people for the first time, usually you train alone, right? You're like, oh, I'm just out here hurting myself. Maybe you got one friend. But all of a sudden you go and you start on that first like 3 or 4 miles. It's real exciting because you're like, man, it's the first time I'm running with all these people. And you're like, woo! It's like elementary school where you're with, first time you're with all these kids. There's new kids. And all of a sudden, you know, some kids, they leave, they rustle. Some kids are always in your pack. And so I remember running my half marathon for the first like 7 or 8 miles. It seemed like there was a group of people who I was just running with. Then once in a while, I would all of a sudden kind of pull ahead. That person would do what? They might go and fall back, and maybe they would catch up. Some people actually got a little bit faster, or maybe I slowed down. In some ways, how we progress through school is kind of like we do things somewhat at our own pace. We're kind of coming and we're going. Here's what I can tell you. It's a lot of fun the first 4 or 5 miles. You're with people, but all of a sudden you get to like junior high, and you realize this is kind of painful. In junior high, 7th, 8th, 9th grade, kind of like running a half marathon, mile 7, mile 8, mile 9. There's a lot of things that aren't very fun because things begin to hurt. Remember in junior high when things hurt? Like the first time you're like, oh, this is what it feels like to have my heart hurt, right? So this is what it feels like to have parts of my body no longer feel the way they used to. So all of a sudden junior high, it's like, poof, I have hair in all kinds of weird places, right? So, yeah, also run through mile 7, miles 8, miles 9. And here's what I can tell you. Once you get past mile like 8 and 9, past junior high, you're looking at miles like 10, you're still a ways away. You're still 4 or 5 miles away from the finish line. And you're looking ahead and you're, man, this is painful. I don't know if I want to keep going. Remember those thoughts you had in junior high? 8th, 9th grade, you're like, man, I go to high school, and maybe you're so done with junior high, you just wanted to move on to the next step. And my guess is, when you were in 9th grade, maybe even 10th grade, once like mile 9, mile 10, you thought to yourself, man, is it worth it? Should I keep going? But you did. And you kept putting one foot in front of the other, one foot in front of the other. You made it through mile 10, sophomore year. You made it through mile 11, right? Junior year. Now all of a sudden you're a senior, right? And then you're like, man, I have to go through, and I got to finish this one last year. And at first that mile seems like it's going to take so long. I remember being like mile 12. Mile 12. Like I got about a little over a mile left. I think to myself, man, but a mile seems like so long right now. But at the same time, I realized that as I was running the half marathon, there was so much that was already behind me. Like I had gone so far, and it was as though I could see the finish line. And I knew that a mile was going to hurt. There's a couple small hills I had to climb. And man, I want to be done. I want to have a nice little gentle, flat, little downhill incline to kind of coast out of my high school career, right? Finish up with graduation. But sometimes, if you were to go, let's say you ran the Tacoma half last year. There's a few spots at the end where you have to go up and run like over an overpass. You think, well, an overpass isn't that big of a deal, but it is. Because it's like running up like a 4 on a hill and you run up that ramp, right? And it seems like such a big deal. But then again, you're so close. You can see the finish line. You're a mile and a half away, and I had to go up over the circle for a lot of you. That's where you're at right now. You are 12 and a half, 12 miles, you are a quarter mile from finishing your half marathon of school. Who thinks it would be ridiculous if all of a sudden you did what? You stopped, and I'm not going to go any further. It's ridiculous. So this is one of those things, this is that last little hill. You got to go up, you got to go over. Okay, and when you're looking, here's what I can tell you. Some of you are looking at certain things, I got a class presentation, I got to finish my portfolio. Here's what I know. I know that when you get done with this thing, when you are standing at graduation, and that graduation, I'm going to stay here June what? 13th. June 13th, Saturday, June 13th. I know you're going to look back at your portfolio. You're going to look back at your exit presentations when I do an interview. You're going to look back and say, you know what, you're going to say to yourself, man, shortly, you will get over this last little hill, and you will, once you're over it, you will kind of descend into graduation. You'll move on and go elsewhere. So you can do it. All right, I know you can. You can do it, right? Now, here's what I can tell you. For a lot of your students, what do I know? How do I pass this thing? What is this thing? Well, here's what I tell students who were here last Tuesday. If you choose to do the exit interview, then a lot of times you are answering the exact same 4 questions that you're going to be addressing in your presentation. The only difference is this. No one's going to ask you those questions. Now, you might say, well, isn't it kind of nice when someone asks those questions, like in between, so I can stay on target? It is. But at the same time, how many things can be nice to a presentation where you completely control your time? Right? Where you don't have to worry about someone all of a sudden kind of throwing their curveball and going, what about this? Oh, so tell me more about your key experience. You say, well, I'm not really prepared for that right now. So the nice part about doing the presentation is you have a chance to go through and make sure that what you do is rehearsed and ready to go, so there's going to be no curveballs thrown your way. That's a good thing. Now, how many of you are doing the honors? Right? I mean, honors. Good. So honor and honors. Now, here's what I can tell you. I'm going to mostly speak to today. I'm going to mostly speak to doing just the exit presentation. Okay, addressing the 4 main questions, how to dress, all sorts of stuff. For all of you, the big ones for the formal presentation are going to be obviously adding a visual aid and then extending the time. Okay, those are the big ones. That's going to be an extra visual aid. So your portfolio +1, and you have to go through and make sure that you extend your time. What is it, 16 to 25 or 18? 18, right? So whereas if you're doing the regular exit presentation, it's 10 to 15. If you're doing the honors, it's 18 to 25. So you're going to have to make sure you plan for a little bit more depth in your answers. Sound good? All right, let's get these out of the way. Here we go. Culminating Project exit presentation. Woo-hoo! Woo! Yes. But just so you know, it will be, this is kind of fun, it'll be 20 years this May that I did one of the I was the second group of students at Rogers High School that went through and was required to do an exit presentation. Now, we didn't have a portfolio at the time. We had to go through and do a presentation much like you're doing, but it wasn't nearly as prescribed with what we taught. It was, hey, you got to come and talk to people about the community, about why you're in, what you did for community service, why you're ready to graduate, all sorts of stuff. So now, you have a much better prescription. Here's what you have to go through and make sure you cover to graduate, to make sure you pass the senior boards. But 20 years ago, in May, I was one of the very first classes to ever do this. And so I've been there. I did it. All right? I know what it's like when you go, oh, I have to make a presentation, I have to present something, I'm talking about a research paper, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I've been there. Okay? And I know this. You will be just fine. And the key is making sure that you prepare, which is why we're here today. Because we want to make sure that you're prepared and ready to go for both your practice presentation, which we'll do right after spring break, as well as April 30th and May 1st, when you do your senior boards and what that looks like as well. So let's go through a few things here. So my mouse is, see my mouse there, everyone? Yeah. All right, see that one. I just have to know today. All right, I just want to know today, and hopefully that's going to be ready at the end of the week is the goal. So that'll be good news for all of you, kind of who that person is. Because here's what I can tell you. How many of you are freaked out with who that's going to be? Okay, do me a favor. Don't let it. Don't let it. Let me know that I coach basketball. There's a lot of gripe right now about the high school basketball state tournament, which starts on Thursday. And the problem is the 2 best teams in the state play each other in the first round. And it's kind of like, why would you do that? Why would you play, I think it's Raider Beach plays Bellevue. And then the 2 best 3A teams in the state, everyone's like, why would you play those teams in the first round? So you have the Seahawks play the Patriots in the first round of the playoffs. It would be silly, right? And then someone said, well, guess what? You have to play them all anyway. So if you're going to be the state champion, you're going to beat that team either on Thursday or on Saturday. Why not just play them on Thursday? That makes sense? So the same way here. Here's what I'm saying. So if you are predicating, all right, your performance and your preparation based on who your senior project evaluator, don't do that. Because either way, you have to meet very professional casual. Do you need to wear a suit? No. Can you? Yes. Is there some student who always wears a suit? Yeah. There's always one. Be that person. I don't care. Right? So make sure you also, when you walk in, hold on. When you walk in, it'll also be good to make sure that that first impression, although you're not doing your official, like, hi, my name is, what? My name is. Although you won't be doing that until you do your actual presentation, it's important to kind of say, hi, everybody, thanks for being here. You don't need yourself, but you can say something kind to the judges. So as people walk in, they're kind of like, okay, just walk in with confidence. Okay, if you're a graduating senior, all right, you can do it. All right. Some other things, all right, let's on apparel. Okay, be clean, be neat. Okay, please, just know what this is. You know what this means. Don't allow your dress and what you wear to speak more about who you are and how prepared you are than how prepared or who you really are. Makes sense? Don't let your clothes talk for you. So I understand we all have different ideas about what is appropriate dress, about what perhaps is a bit on the risque side versus what perhaps is on the side of fashion. I will tell you this, just play it cool that day. Sound good? Because here's what I will tell you, whereas I understand fashion, as you can tell, all right, many of my colleagues, maybe they have a different opinion about what is appropriate dress or not appropriate dress. My question is, if you put something on in the morning and you say to yourself, okay, there's a chance that someone might say about this, then guess what? Change. Don't put yourself in a position. That's it. Just don't put yourself in a position where you might go through and have your clothing or you're not what you wear is nice enough to kind of call into question. Make sense? So make sure it's neat, make sure it's ready to go. Make sure apparel stays on when you wear it. Right? I'll do one of these all day. Okay? A lot of guys try to pull one of these a lot of times. A lot of guys do one of this all the whole time. Find clothes that fit that day. All right? And by the way, if you think you're the only one to do that's going to feel weird about wearing your clothes that are nice that day, you're not alone. You're going to walk around and realize that every single senior, and there's going to be an athlete, 250 or so on each day, you're all going to have the exact same things with your heads. I don't wear this to school normally. Well, guess what? Neither does anyone else. So you go, okay, unless you're Matt Norwell. You want to shoot Matt? All right. Okay, there's one of the things, obviously, shorts, things, just warning stuff that happens. Skirts that are too short, t-shirts, a lot of times people just kind of full on wear jeans, people wear flip-flops, and guys walk in, oh, hey, I need to have socks for this. Yeah, you should, right? It's an interview or it's a presentation, right? Make sure jewelry, kind of keep your jewelry kind of around that day if you want. So here are some examples. Well, actually, fishnets, so one of those fishy, you know what that is? I read this stuff and I'm like, what are those? Do you know what mules are? Someone said, well, you can't wear mules. Someone says like shoes, they're kind of like, I think they're like flip-flops kind of, but they're basically like sandals that have no back on them, right? They're kind of flip-flop, but they just got exit presentation day. Sound good? Now, here's what I do. I don't need you to ask 1,000 questions. I mean, you know what's appropriate. Make sure you just do it like this. We're in appropriate clothing like right now. Like, hey, I've got this nail right now. I mean, here's some slacks maybe. All right, still dressed. All right. So, you will be fine. All right. If for some reason you need something, you might say, no, Brooke, I don't have a tie. Can I get a tie? We'll find one for you. Mrs. McBowen can help you out. The administration will help you out. We'll try and get what you need to make sure everyone can look nice. Does that sound good? All right. So let's talk about visual aids. So I already said it one time. Just keep in mind, the visual aid is the most important part of your presentation that day. Make sure that you have a portfolio that's organized, that is easily visible, and appropriately incorporated throughout the presentation. That's the key. Okay. One of the reasons why people don't pass their presentation is they show up, and a lot of times there's a table, and the table's sitting in front, and they set their portfolio on the table, they start with their presentation, maybe they've got a PowerPoint, and they never once refer to this. Okay, and in the end, we all know, as evaluators, that you must use your portfolio to pass the presentation. So you have to practice that. You should not be able to say, well, I know what I'm going to say, I'll just use it when I start doing it. It doesn't work that way. You have to go through and be specific about how you use this thing. The best ways to use it are to make sure that you've got either a sticky or those little tabs. For every time you know when you want to use it, I would have a little tab. And maybe it's a green tab for lesson 1, or it's a green tab. So question 2 is pink tab. So question 3 is orange tab. But have something which allows you to say, hey, and then for a lot of you, you might use note cards, which look like, but if you have a note card, this is a note card, right? Here's your note card. Okay, here's my note card. It would be very okay for you to have some talking points. And then you might put a little green sticker or green highlighter, because that would tell you, oh, when I'm talking about this thing that's in the green, I must refer to the green tab in my portfolio. So that's where you go through and you can show us. That's one way to make sure that you incorporate your portfolio as a visual aid into your presentation. Questions about that? Go ahead.
What if you scan like all of your photos
as long as I think that here's what I'll tell you. If we know your portfolio is done, complete, and passed, and you scan those and put them in your portfolio so we can see what they are, I think that is just fine. Just make sure it's really clear that this is a larger view of my portfolio so you can all see it at the same time. Okay, very good to see you, right? So a lot of times people show us things, and you're across the room and we're looking at it like, what does that mean? But if you want to scan it in your PowerPoint, if you're doing the honors, that would be fun, right? If you are not doing the honors, that's not really an option. So only for the honors people have the PowerPoints. So. All right, so stuff. So how do I meet this time? What do I do? Okay, this is very manageable. You can do this. And the way that you do it is you don't see this as, oh my gosh, how am I going to figure out a way to get through, 12 minutes or 13 minutes or through 18 minutes of stuff. Okay, see it as for each of these 4 questions, how do you plan a 3 to 4 minute speech for each question? Have it all ready to go. Then you add 3 to 4 speeches that are 4 minutes together. Next thing you have 16 minutes of time, plus introduction, conclusion, and you've got 18 minutes. Okay, if you're someone who is doing the 10-minute version, which is just simply the presentation with no honors and exit, it's so simple. 4 questions, right? 2 minutes each. That's 8 minutes. You have an introduction, you have a conclusion, each at a minute or so. There's your 10 minutes. So don't see this, okay, how do I start planning a 15-minute presentation? It's how do I plan each of these so they are good enough to fulfill. And here's what I tell you, it happens most times. When people do their practice presentation, and especially the practice interview, which most of you are not doing, people a lot of times will have 2 or 3 questions really well planned out. questions here in a few minutes. Sound good? All right, here we go. So here's a big question: is what flow do you have to, or why do you create the Culminating Project hours of presentation? Here's the myth. The myth is this will go away if I just drag my feet. I won't have to do it. It's not going away. Okay? There will be seniors that the Friday before graduation practice or the Thursday before graduation practice, they'll be trying to wrap their portfolio. Okay, there'll be seniors that on those last 2 days don't get their portfolio done, don't finish their hours, and then mysteriously they won't be at graduation that next day. You probably won't notice because you're with your family and your friends and you're excited, but that will happen. And sometimes people have this idea that eventually this stuff is going to kind of fade away and you won't have to do it. You have to do it. Okay? That's the reality. The reality is you will go through this process of completing your portfolio, right? Of doing the practice speech, okay, of doing the final senior boards, exit presentation, exit interview. Those things are going to happen. So make sure you plan accordingly to do it at the right time. Here's the big one. Everyone always thinks that, hey, if I just prolong this, it gets easier and easier to pass. The reality is it's the opposite. Because the longer you drag your feet, or the more you drag your feet, the harder it is to get things passed. Because if you think you're going to be alone in this, which means if you think that, hey, I know that portfolio is a week late, so I can just walk in and have this real and pass it on Friday afternoon, it doesn't work that way. Because you might say, hey, remember, when are you going to pass my portfolio? I have to do my presentation on Tuesday. I'm like, well, I don't know, it's Friday at 2:15. It's 2 weeks late. Now you want me to also just kind of hang out and also worry about you having a portfolio this weekend because you couldn't turn it on time when it's down 3 weeks late. It's my problem. So make sure that you plan accordingly. Make sure that you are not putting yourself in a position which takes longer. People make this mistake all the time. Well, my community service hour, I'll just finish it next week because I'll go down and Mrs. McMullen will pass them right away. And by the way, do you think Mrs. McMullen is busy or just hanging around waiting for you to show up in her office in the next few weeks? She's busy. You're not going to go down and talk to anyone, all right? So make sure you meet the deadlines, stay on target with when you're supposed to turn things in, so you don't have to worry about waiting in long lines. The big one is always going to be the portfolio. It's always that way. Hey, can you turn my portfolio is here now. Can you have it back to me by lunchtime? No. Why not? Well, because you just gave it to me. It's the end of Jag. What am I going to do it next hour? Well, can't you just grade it real quick? No. Well, it's your planning period. I know. And I'm still not going to do it. What? Because I'm irritated that you can walk in here with a portfolio that's 3 weeks late and then demand that I get it done in 2.5 hours. It doesn't work that way, right? So some of this is not only your skills to do the things that need to get done, but also your skills to deal with people. Make sense? So if grace has already been given, make sure you account for the grace that's been given. Does that make sense? So someone says, hey, you know what? I know your portfolio is late, so give it to me next Friday. It's a week late, but I'll still grade it. Then make sure that you understand that they have given you that opportunity and treat that as an opportunity, not as, okay, now it's a week late, now give it back to me by the end of the day. Okay, so make sure you choose wisely how you delay that. All right, so a few things. By the way, everybody's fine. Don't stress. You all will get there. People for years have been doing this. I made it through. You're all smarter than I am. I know you can't do it. So an introduction. Okay, a few things. So when you first show up, what do I do? Hey, it's now your turn. So we say, hey, Corey, are you ready? Corey's like, sure. Corey grabs his portfolio. Okay, he walks over, he's got the portfolio, he comes up, he walks in the room. The time may or may not start. Usually it doesn't until you actually start performing, but it doesn't mean that you don't need to have a proper introduction. So when you first walked in, you got 3 judges, probably at least 2 people from staff and 2 teachers. Some of you may or may not know, and you're probably going to have at least 1, maybe 2 people from the community, which maybe, who knows? A couple years ago, I had someone from the city council and the superintendent of schools with me. And I was like, oh boy, I felt nervous. I was just judging, right? Good thing Merck was the head judge. He kind of took control of things. So anyway, but this first part, I'll see a good first impression. You walk in, shake each hand, okay? Introduce yourself. Hi, right? My name is Matt. get up or tells you when it's okay to start, those sort of things. And you'll look at like this, a lot of that it might be the head evaluator that you have should be the head judge that day. So whoever is grading your portfolio should be your head judge when you do it. So, really the introduction, you should ask yourself, what tone or mood do you want to create with your speech? So that's a big one, okay? Have an idea. What do I want to accomplish? What's this going to sound like when I do my speech? And your intro can be one of the variety of styles. Okay, I don't want you to read too much into this, but if you are someone who's struggling with how to go through and actually write your presentation and write your answers, it would be good for you to choose one of these three options. Okay, the three options being number one is the narrative or anecdotal style, which might be like, hey, I'm going to go through and kind of narrate my story. I'm going to provide a few things. Like anecdotes means, hey, here's some things I've learned along the way. More of that kind of a free-flowing speech. You may have more of an informative speech, which is more like, okay, it just walks you through, and here's all the information you need to know for informative. The last one, defensive or philosophical, where you might be really kind of displaying a philosophy about your entire high school career as well as your life beyond high school. So one of those three options, I don't want to spend a ton of time on these, but I can do these for you. So here's narrative and goal. Here's the purpose, is to create a casual, dramatic, or even humorous tone to your speech that relies heavily on personal experience. A lot of people choose this, right? They're talking about themselves, okay? I think one of the coolest things I ever had, I was in Boston probably 10 years ago. This kid walked in, I had a class for 2 years, and he walked in, and he after his introduction, hi, 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 hi. He stopped, he stood in front, he started to unbutton his shirt. I was like, oh, what's going to happen? And I was like, and he started to unbutton his shirt. He got about 2 or 3 buttons down here, and he goes, hey, my name is so-and-so, and I want you to know that I am one in a billion. And he pulled his shirt apart, and he had a huge amount, like an inch wide of scar tissue. And he used the first shift to explain about what it was like to have 7 heart surgeries before the age of 11. He went on to talk about what it was like to try and struggle through PE or try out for sports like all of his friends are doing, but never have the heart that for a long time could support the actual physical endurance it would take to do the things he wanted to do. He talked about what it was like to go through ROTC and have to go through and lead his battalions as Rogers, lead his battalion of marching, which is physically endurance, but all the same time getting to go through and speak loudly and give commands. And what that took, the toll it took on him physically, that it didn't take on most students who had a heart which was born with no defects like his own. And I was like, man, what a great introduction. In some ways, that kind of provided this narrative anecdotal thing about, hey, here's what you know about me from the beginning. Now, let me preface that. I know a lot of you have some things which make you who you are. Let me warn you. This is not that time where you want to go through and say, hey, here's all the horrible things that have happened to me and why you need to know about them. All right? We still, I don't want to discredit that stuff. I don't want to discount those things. But what you need to turn that stuff into is not, here's all the things that have happened. This is why it's so tough. Just say, hey, here's who I am. Here's the things that have happened to me, and this is the person that I am today and will continue to be as a result. Does that make sense? It's much more of that sort of thing versus, hey, you know what, when I was 8, my dog died. And ever since, and then you share it for years. Now, I'm not trying to minimize anything, I'm really not. But just know that you want to make sure that you are careful about those things. Did you want to inquire? Yeah. Okay. You're going to miss the 4 questions. Come in sometime, we'll talk about it, right? Alright, so there's one. Restraint is obviously it's effective. It's good to get someone's attention, it's great stuff. Usually, it means you can gain some trust because you obviously tell some people some things about you. So this is that narrative that goes out and good. Sometimes it can take, this is why I worry about the stories, it can take a bit of an informal turn. Make sense? Where a lot of times it's all about the stories about your life, and people a lot of times get all into the stories of their life and don't spend enough time talking about what we need to know, which is the 4 main questions about your portfolio or high school experience. Make sense? So be careful not to go down this huge path of stories that it's okay to go this route, make sure you're still addressing what needs to be addressed. The second one. The second one is what is informative. It means to create a formal tone that emphasizes the facts, information of your research project and what your paper is, so it's a little more formal. The strengths of your credibility. So you're going to go through and say, hey, it's very formal. Here's what I did, here's why I did it. Okay, here's my community service hours. My community service hours fits in with my research paper. I did my research paper my hours. Then in my future plan, I want to go and get a 2-year degree at Pierce, then a 4-year degree in counseling, and I want to be a family counselor when I get older. Okay, very much informative. Okay, not bad, just a bit different from tone. Very much here's information you need to know. Most people have a combination of these first two styles between both the informative and the anecdotal as they do the presentation. Then the third one is going to be kind of this pensive, philosophical, to create a thought-provoking tone that emphasizes the depth of your project or what you did. So maybe that language and project that's kind of confusing. But for some of you, you might take this route and say, I'm going to go through and get people to really think about their own life. Right? So that would be, if you want more information on these sort of things, great. If it's too in-depth for you, then simply worry about the 4th question we're going to worry about now. All right, are you ready? All right, holiday transitions. Here's the big part. No one is going to ask you questions when you do the presentation. So what that means is you have to be very, very clear when you move from one section to the next. Okay, so for you, I would make sure that you plan that transition. So when you move from your background, make sure it's very clear that you're moving from your background into your best works or into your culminating have to be here. Work on it now. So, all I want you to do is open up this chat. So there's 4 questions. The 4 main questions. Here's the first question. Question 1 about background. 2 about community experience. Assignments, question 3. And number 4 is next steps in post-high school plan. Your goal is to be right here on this first page and figure out what are some things you can go through and you can write. Alright? It's got brainstorming. Just write down a few things. Now, this is not official, but here's what a lot of people do. A lot of people, in these next 3 or 4 minutes, they go through and they write down, here are the things I'm going to talk about. And eventually, whenever they put on this little sheet, this becomes their note card. And then when they actually want to go and answer the question, doing the practices and 2 weeks in advisory, and then the real practice speech after spring break with a different teacher, not your advisor assignment, then they use those note cards to go through and practice and prepare. Nothing that you write down is set in stone, but the more you write down is going to help you later on when you think about it. Sound good? So spend a few minutes, just go through a brainstorm. Hey, what are some things that I might include when I answer question 1? Sound good? has more young people like you doing more of those programs like Teach America, AmeriCorps, and all this and Peace Corps than it is state. And I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it's because we do this sort of thing. And students at a young age, like your age, understand that community service can be fun. It can be something which is not necessarily it might be more worth your time to play a video game. So as a result, you go and you do it. And if you do it, a lot of times those things carry on to doing more things in your community later in life. So, question this question off. Go ahead. I would tie this in by simply showing my community logs. You say, hey, and you know what? I love this so much. I didn't spend 20 hours. I spent 64 hours. Here's my time log. Like, I would try to make sure that you use your portfolio once for each question. Go ahead.
Okay, if you have like several organizations that you're volunteering at, do you want us to give a brief overview of each or go more in depth?
I would choose the one which, if you said, hey, what was your community experience in? I would choose the one which you thought was the most, maybe spent the most time with, which had the biggest impact.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, it may be that you have several different types of groups you work with, but it's all the same type of thing. So you can go through and mold those together. So say you do freezing nights and you work with the first kind of food bank and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that would be okay to kind of mold those. So as a result, I work with people, I would just kind of mold those together and be fun as well. So good question. What else? Other questions? Alright, so this is this. You can add in community service plan habits, or you want add in your mentor evaluation, what your mentor says about you. Hopefully it's good stuff. Then we'll talk about your reflection paper, some things you go back, hey, I think that afterwards, some things I figured out about myself and the community were this. Okay, you can use that as some evidence. Your you should make direct evidence to your portfolio, as well as if you have a large scale community service, you should probably show that to us. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Some work time. Answer question 2. We're talking. No wrong answer. No time the present. Get after it. Get some stuff down. Brainstorm what you might and how you might answer this question. Visual aid stuff. Yeah, this is a great opportunity for you to use visual aid. Actually, his name was Hunter Stutz. Remember Hunter? You might know something about Hunter. Hunter decided to raise money for he called it Climb for Cason. And he eventually climbed down here. And as he climbed, his goal was to raise money for a little boy who had a kind of extreme form of cancer he was, or sort of effect. So he made lots of money, and in the process, he actually was on, I think like the radio. It was on like Cairo radio, like 2 or 3 times, where the radio show, I guess called the Ron and Don show, you heard it before, actually got him on. He had actually brought in a clip of him doing the interview and showed it last year to us. Said, hey, and something that was really cool that came was I tried to climb for case to raise money. The Cairo radio found out about it. They had me up there. And here's a video of me talking on the Ron and Don show about thousands of radio listeners, probably 100,000 radio listeners, about what I was doing. So it was a pretty cool experience to get that kind of big. As a result, I ended up raising like about $20,000 or $25,000 towards this little boy's treatment. So some pretty cool stuff. That was a great opportunity to go through and use that visual aid. So a lot of times we get this idea about what this can or cannot be. Let me tell you this. I really think that this can be a lot of things. And for him, I thought to myself, when he got done, this is what it's all about. You can see that he had grown. You can see that his example changed him, that he felt he had an influence and kind of changed his kid's family. So pretty cool stuff. If you have that experience, we'd love to hear about it. We really would. So that would be good. Question, go ahead.
So before our honors, can we just do a presentation of pictures and just go through and show
parts, you must show us each of these assignments. If you're doing the honors, this might be a good spot to go through and add in a clip of you performing something. Maybe you actually add the music that you wrote. All right, hey, so I thought great. I actually rewrote this music together in my, in this quartet. What's going to be those sort of things, all right? Any questions about this one? Go ahead.
So this has to be for your evidence of learning?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
How many students posters?
meet down